America Schools webinar series. My name is Curtis Valentine. I'm the co-director of the Reinventing America Schools project. Today's event is co-sponsored by the 74. The Reinventing America Schools project is housed at the Progressive Policy Institute and promotes a model of schools we call 21st century school systems, or systems that provide parents more choice and give schools more autonomy in return for more accountability. Our research shows that public school systems that do this produce the most rapid improvement in student performance, especially for students of color. Today is the second webinar in a series we are calling Untapped Expertise, HBCUs as Charter Authorizers. The title comes from a report I co-wrote with Dr. Kariga Rausch of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. The report highlights the historical impact historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, have played in shaping the 20th century's America, but also more importantly, how it can shape the 21st century in creating K-12 schools that meet the urgent needs of America's families and students. I have an amazing panel of leaders who are revolutionizing education in their own space. Before they introduce themselves, we want to find out more about you, the audience. And so before I ask them to introduce themselves, we're going to put up a poll. Those who are logged in, we want you to answer this question, the multiple choice question. Which group do you most identify with? Are you a parent, educator, a funder, a journalist, an advocate, or a policy maker? Now, if you're like me, you wear more than one of these hats. But as it relates to this conversation, which one of these groups do you most identify with? And we'll check back in on that. We're going to allow that information will help our panelists to, sort of tailor some of their questions, particularly if we see we have a larger population of folks in a particular group. That being said, I do want to allow my panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with you, Dr. Lang. Introduce yourself, what you do, and where you're from.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Angela Lane. I am a recent BES and New Schools for Alabama founding fellow. Most recently, I am co-founder and executive director of I Dream Big Academy Charter School, Alabama's first HBCU partnered charter school in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We are a 612 charter partner with Stillman College and will also co-locate on the campus of Stillman College. Our mission is to forge partnerships to college and purposeful careers through rigorous, relevant, and relational learning experiences. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, and welcome. And God bless Stillman College. So glad that you're there. Let's bring it more close to home, Dr. Procope.
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen, and I am the executive director of the Howard University Middle School Mathematics and Science. We have been on the campus of Howard University since 2005. Our school is a middle school. We serve grades 6 through 12 from all the wards in Washington, D.C. And we give a amazing education to the young people in the city with a severe focus on mathematics and science.
Thank you so much. Coming from the Mecca, which the only HBCU who has that title, Howard University, I imagine Dr. Scott would want to not debate that because there's only one Mecca and there's only one hilltop. But we are in our HBCU community, we have our own debates about who's the best, but we understand that everyone is great in their own right. And so we definitely understand that. Last but not least, Dr. Scott.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Quinyon Scott. I serve as the program manager for Coppin Academy on the campus of Eagle Nation, Coppin State University. We too have been a part of Coppin State as the operator since 2005. Our vision is nurturing lives while providing full potential. We serve grades 9 through 12 with about 36% of our high school students coming to Coppin State University. The primary mission is to provide a different opportunity for a vast majority of students to actually have an opportunity to walk on a college campus every single day while in high school. We service 386 students in 2 buildings on Coppin State's University campus.
No, thank you so much for joining. That 36% number is amazing. 1/3 of the students attend an institution. We're going to talk about that, about pipelines and the power of these schools to create pipelines into those schools. And that's a great statistic. Before we get started, I do want to go back to our poll to hear about who's in the space and who's joined us. And so if you can put that up, 50% of the folks who responded are educators. And so as you're responding, we have another quarter are advocates. We also have some policymakers and parents in the room as well. And folks are joining. Unfortunately, those who are watching from other platforms cannot respond to the poll, but we're glad to have you just as well. So let me get started. In our first webinar on this subject, myself, the panelists who included folks from HBCUs and also my co-author, Dr. Roush, we emphasized the bond that we all had in present-day education and the need in the search for great ideas that are bold enough to push leaders to challenge themselves to think about the future of education in a new way based on historical success. And we highlighted in a report that historically there is no other institution, no set of institutions more successful in training Black students in America than HBCUs. HBCUs do more with less. They train a disproportionate number of students, Black students, to become school teachers, doctors, lawyers, military officers, PhDs, and the like, even though if only a fraction of African Americans even attend HBCUs. And so we often say that HBCUs punch way above their weight. So the question is for all of you, and I want to get you all a chance to respond to this question. Tell us why you chose to align your work and purpose with an HBCU. And so we can start with you, Dr. Procope. Why an HBCU?
It's so interesting you said that because I didn't attend an HBCU for any of my coursework. However, one of the things that attracted me to Howard is the fact that if you meet anybody who has attended any HBCU, Howard or whatever, there is such a deep-seated love for the school and for what the school does to nurture. And one of the things that we have to remember that, and the pandemic definitely taught us this, is that school, especially for Black and brown children, is not just let me deliver some content to you. It requires some patience, some nurturing, some understanding, some addressing who they are as people and what their background is, and providing that kind of community that encourages that success. HBCUs epitomize that. And that was really important for me to align what I was doing to what was best for our children, and particularly our children who are often neglected in this system.
Thank you so much. Dr. Scott, why Coppin State? Why not somewhere else?
Well, I am a two-time graduate of an HBCU and fourth generational HBCU graduate. So HBCUs are near and dear to my heart. Previously, I was a former principal, and as a principal, I had one goal really, and that was to ensure that we provided options for students for college and career readiness, and work with a multitude of universities in the area to support those initiatives. And when I had the opportunity to come to Coppin State, I immediately jumped on it. This is going into my second year. I've been so excited about the opportunity to ensure that students of color that are on a college campus every day understand the importance of them being on the campus, understand the legacy of the campus since 1900, and understand that they too have an obligation to Fannie Jackson, who is our beloved founder, to make sure that they are following in the footsteps that she envisioned for those students.
And so I can't let you go by without naming those HBCUs that you attended and that your family attended. Let's shout those HBCUs out.
Absolutely. St. Augustine's College, or now University, Howard University, and Morgan State University. And my mom is a proud graduate of Winston-Salem State University.
There you go. And I have family who attended St. Aug's, Winston-Salem State, all those institutions, amazing institutions. And I'm sure they're so proud of you. Dr. Lang, you chose Stillman College, made a lot of headlines about it. Why Stillman? Why an HBCU? Why not somewhere else?
For me, it was very personal. I grew up across the street from Stillman College. I'm a first generational college graduate who attended an HBCU, Tuskegee University. But it was as a disconnected high school student and a struggling high school student, it was Stillman College Upward Bound program that developed a pathway for me to even think college was a possibility. Now, 24 years in education, I saw this as an opportunity to go back home and help instill and create a pathway similar to what was provided to me. There are so many kids in my community who look just like me, but who are struggling to find that pathway and that opportunity. So this was just a great opportunity to go back, collaborate with the school that opened that door for me to reach back into our own backyard to make sure that there's more pathways and opportunities for students who, again, look just like me, facing the same barriers that I faced as a high school student.
No, thank you. Very personal story, and I think I would imagine all of us have a personal story about why we got into education, about educators who touched our lives, about systems that really were not serving us, but we found folks who could really support us through that, and so we're so excited. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to reference a report, and I'm going to ask my colleague Max, who's also supporting on this, to drop a link to the report in the chat for those who are watching, so you can click on this link and follow us as we're going through the report, but also allowing those who are doing the work, practitioners, leaders in this space, to respond to it. Our report outlines 4 key ways we believe HBCUs can impact the future, just as they've done in the past. Again, we've had HBCUs that have been around for so long. I'm a proud graduate of Morehouse College, over 150 years in education, and all of our institutions have been around for generations, centuries even. Firstly, we believe, and my co-author, Dr. Griga Rausch, in the report highlights that we believe HBCUs can, as we say, redesign public education by overseeing and expanding quality public education options to improve outcomes for parents and students. There are districts, there are school board members, superintendents right now that are trying their best, trying to figure this thing out. Post-COVID learning loss, artificial intelligence, teacher shortages, anxiety, of students and teachers, you name it, we're dealing with it. But there's no silver bullet. But as I mentioned before, HBCUs uniquely, historically, are able to train and produce excellence in African-American education. So I'll start with you, Dr. Prokop, again. Tell us about your school more in sort of what's happening on a day-to-day basis and how it's unique from other schools in Washington, D.C.
So just a really quick, brief background. The school was founded and chartered by Howard University. So there were visionaries there back in 2005 who wanted to create a pipeline for STEM careers for Black and brown children. And so they went through the process and chartered our school and provided everything that the school needed. Our building is right on campus. It faces the yard. You can't get any closer to the action than that. And one of the amazing things that happened is the School of Education was deeply involved in the actual development of the charter, focusing on what the goals and the mission and everything that had to do with the school, putting all those pieces together to get them to the authorizer to become a school. And the beauty of that is they didn't just do that and then go away. We have partnerships with all of the entities on campus. We are a place where teachers who are doing their student teaching, we are that place where they can come and do that student teaching right in the classroom. Our classrooms are available to students in the School of Education who are studying classroom management, who are studying school psychology. They come to us. We also provide places for research for schools on the campus that you would never even think of, but their students are looking to either do their doctoral research or their master's research, and it involves schools and children, and they don't have to do anything but walk across the yard. The back side of that is that our young people get to experience, just like was said before, being on campus. Number one, we actually had a parent say that to their child who was being a little interesting, saying you are stepping into your future right here. And so we hold on to that. So our young people go to the School of Biology and do experiments. They're at the School of Chemistry desalinating soda and understanding the importance of water. They're sitting in Dr. Carr's class and learning about African American history and those types of things. And just recently at the School of Business, they were learning the business behind music production. Every child wants to be a rapper, but the money is actually in the production. And so our young people at a middle school age were actually able to learn that. We have folks from the fine arts department who are doing music therapy for some of our young people. So, I mean, the list goes on. We'll be here all day if I tell you about the partnerships, but just the fact that we are part of the Howard family is an invaluable resource to not only to our children, but also to our teachers. Many of them are Howard grads, and they are also able to participate in everything that's going on in the university. So it's just it's a family atmosphere, but it's crucial to the development of our teachers and our educators.
Dr. Poco, just listening to you, I get emotional because these students are really living a life that I think a lot of us, once we got to our HBCU, wish we had got there earlier. When I attended Morehouse, I said, wow, y'all were here the whole time and nobody told me. But I think it's also, when we talked about the title to this, we could have called it, We've Got You Surrounded. Because what you're doing is you're surrounding these students with excellence in so many, they are seeing excellence every day. And this gets to the whole, we didn't get into this in the report, I don't want to get too off, but this belief gap that often exists within our community. These students are seeing excellence, seeing particularly Black male educators, which is very, very personal to me, Dr. Carr and others. My valedictorian of my class, Andreas Woods, taught at Howard University as well, got a doctorate in Egyptian mathematics. That's how we do things, right? We and taught students. And so this having them on that campus is so amazing. Dr. Scott, tell us about your school and why do parents in Baltimore choose your school over other options that they could choose? Because they have options, but they choose to trust you and your school with their children. Tell us about your school and why parents choose you.
Yeah, well, I thank Dr. Proco for sharing. Our story is very much like Howard Middle School. Coppin State University is the operator of Coppin Academy since 2005. We are actually the only HBCU in the state of Maryland that has an operating high school on its campus. Very similar. Our building faces the yard, right? Our students walk past all of the Greek plots every day, and they have this great opportunity to just understand what college is. Our sole purpose, really, we have multiple pathways, but our main pathway that's inclusive of every student is the dual enrollment program. So starting in grade 10, students with a GPA of 2.5 or higher, and we provide interventions and supports in grade 9 to ensure we have a plethora of students with that 2.5 to participate and truly become a part of the university. So they're taking coursework with other students that are Coppin State University students, both from the country and international. They're learning just an array of things. More importantly, they have options. We talk about economic impact of having the resources that would be on a college campus versus just at a high school. I'll say why parents. So currently, Coppin Academy, we are a lottery school. Baltimore City, we often say it's the city of have and have nots. There are a large group of high schools which you have to do assessments to get in. They have entrance criteria, and those are the schools often that typically are more successful than the schools that are community schools. Coppin Academy is a lottery school, so it's the luck of the draw. We take a variety of 140 students every ninth grade incoming year. And the goal is really whatever happened to you prior to coming, that we, HBCUA, can nurture and provide support to make sure that we're closing academic gaps. We're providing parents with additional support to make sure that they understand the concept of dual enrollment, early learning, even career exploration. also ensuring that it's a partnership. So we are a family, and we want to encourage that ongoingly so that not just academics, but students feel safe coming to campus. We are an open campus in the heart of Baltimore City. And so it's important to make sure that parents and families know that it's a safe environment. In addition to that, we are the only high school that has an actual police department right on campus as well. So that does increase safety. I'll say that when we survey parents, one of the things that resounds is that you care. And it's so important that we let students know that they are truly loved, which goes to this concept of HBCU, we're a family. It's not just about education, but it's about cultural perseverance and making sure that we are one in society. And so we do that at the high school level, which is one of the reasons why we have such a large number of those interested in the lottery.
That's so important. So this just also one clarification. So the students that are taking dual enrollment classes, are they paying for those courses?
No. So Coppin State is a part of the partnership. They pay for all students to take classes. And the only impact is if the student fails a course, they are responsible for paying for that course. But as long as the student successfully passes the course, there is no fee to the student. And that does include both books and fees or additional videos that a professor may need. Coppin State pays for all of it.
Oh, thank you so much. This idea of dual enrollment, college credit in high school, has gone up tremendously in the last few years. My son and my daughter attend a high school where they're getting an associate's degree, and they're going to save my wife and I a little piece of change that I'm looking forward to keeping in my pocket. And this idea of sort of dual enrollment and connecting K-12 and higher education is growing tremendously. And there's parents that are going to be demanding this and looking for that and making that a part of their decision process. And so the more you talk, the more it makes sense. You're all about an hour from me. I'm in Maryland too. I don't know if I can get my son up there to Coppin, but if he could. So Bowie State University, it's been put out there, Doc. I don't know where you are. I got folks at Bowie State. Hey, it's out there. Morgan State, what you looking for? Hey, what's up? Eastern Shore, what's up? Coppin said they doing it. Dr. Lang, your school, I Dream Big, has not opened yet. But my question to you is, as you're building your enrollment strategy, what is your pitch to parents in your community about why they should choose I Dream Big over other school options that they have?
Yes, so we're scheduled to open fall of 2025, but it's so much aligned to what Dr. Scott and Dr. Prokop has shared. I Dream Big Academy will serve students grades 6 through 12. We will also be located on the campus of Stillman College. Now I have to go back and strategically make sure that we're close enough to the yard as we look at our building plans. But I would really like to share with parents is that the school, as well as the partnership with Stillman, creates that perfect synergy and opportunity to allow our students to discover their passions and their interests while having firsthand experiences of being able to participate and learn and engage in the different college programs that's offered at Stillman College. Our students also will participate in a dual enrollment program. Currently, our partnership is that all students will earn up to 33 hours over the course of their tenure with us and with Stillman College. So as a parent, you're saving tuition for a full year. The cost of that tuition, while also ensuring that the student has those support systems in place to not only make sure that they're successful in high school, but also what does college look like? So for us, it's being successful in high school, but also making sure that they can successfully either go on and continue a 2 or 4 year college or be successful going directly in the workplace. And so our emphasis to parent not only the exposure of being a part of that HBCU environment on campus, but also the support systems that are in place to ensure that their child is successful beyond high school.
No, thank you. Yeah, I think check out that plan. It got to be on the yard. I mean, the bar is set. If they can't see the probate when it happens live, it's going to be a question. But I'm glad the three of you are all talking. I hope this is a beginning of a conversation. The three of you and other leaders from HBCUs like Delaware State, North Carolina Central, that have charter schools, that have schools on their campus. And for me, in this project, I've discovered the young man who runs my son's program at his school here in Maryland actually attended high school on the campus of North Carolina Central University, another Eagle school, Dr. Scott. And Eagles fly down there as well. I do want to get a chance to go back to our audience. And I want you all to be creative in this space, audience members. This is the open-ended question. This is not a multiple choice. Do you have an idea for a unique K-12 school model? Now, you know, is it Montessori? Is it a language immersion? Is it a boarding school model? Is it a science and technology model? What are your thoughts? If you could create a school based on your own experience, on the research, on your passions, on where you think education starts, what would that be? We're going to allow you to fill in that blank. Tell the type of school you'd like to start if you could, and then share that with our panelists and with the rest of the audience. I want to get back to our report. The second way in our report that we believe HBCUs can really change education as authorizers is by impacting the future of education, we call building on educational legacies. And that's by really deepening connections with local communities. Like how are schools getting back to connecting with local communities? Those of you who read our report, you'll learn about HBCU lab schools. All my Southern lab schools from Southern University, you know, those folks go so hard for their school. And there were HBCU lab schools throughout the South. But most of them were connected to the local community, and that built out their school model in a very powerful way. I want to start with you, Dr. Lang, first. In what ways will your school deepen community connections with local leaders, local institutions at and around Stillman College?
We're really sharing in on the vision of that Stillman College that President Page is bringing and communicating with us. So President Page has a vision of a communiversity and creating a concept from cradle to career education. And so part of our approach with her communiversity is to look at that K-12 piece. And one of the things that while we're not open, but as we're working through our planning year, has been very intentional of forging those partnerships, relationships with community leaders, and looking at how can we bring them to the table, not only as part of the development of what our school model look like, but also once we're operating. So it's how do our community members serve as advisors, as mentors. We're a project-based school, and so we created our schedule to ensure that our high school students, at least 2 days out of the week, are out in the community, whether it's job shadow opportunities, internships, or developing their projects with community leaders. But we've kind of begun to just build this environment where we're honing in on the voices of our community, creating that open door feel that we want them at the table as part of a two-way communication in order to truly build the concept of the communiversity with Stillman College and Dr. Page.
I love that term, communiversity. And again, that goes back to, I think, the founding of our institutions, that the connection between the university and the community surrounding it, the faith community, the political community, the folks who are active in social change, all of those things were part and parcel of those founding and the proliferation of our universities. Dr. Scott, tell us about the community connections that you all have made in and around the Baltimore area that really help you support the mission of your school.
So our president, who is Dr. Anthony Jenkins for Coppin State University, he is West Baltimore, and he's done a remarkable job of building a community by sitting on a multitude of boards for the university. I will say what his work does specifically for the high school is ensuring that we have resources and access, which is truly so important. So for an example, one of the things that recently the university did last summer was that they gave Coppin Academy a complete overhaul, which included new flooring, new walls, ensuring that the landscape of the high school matched what the brand for the university was. And so our president has a wide variety of community resources. And I think that it's important to funnel that down. So not just sharing it among community with Coppin State University, but making sure that the high school resembles the brand, making sure that there is a clear pipeline for what the high school is doing. So there is lots of, in addition to that, there's lots of construction around our community. And one of our recent grants is the West Baltimore Community Foundation grant, which helps us to our current Coppin State University students are able to mentor our high school students through this grant. So it's remarkable funding for us to have multiple meetings throughout the month where college students can actually support and help our high school students. There's also an after school program that allows students to work on e-cycling and support. All of these grants are literally in our backyard to help ensure that the school is growing and moving with the duality of the partnership.
That's outstanding. I mean, I was recently looking at a report about what they call high dosage tutoring, high impact tutoring around the country in response to COVID learning loss, students getting back into the flow. And the federal government, philanthropy is really pushing this idea of college students being serving as tutors to support pushing out and increasing the number of high dosage tutors. And so glad to hear that Coppin State is taking the lead on that. I think this is going to be something that a lot of jurisdictions, school districts are going to be partnering with higher education because there's a shortage of high dosage tutors that are qualified, that are trained, that can do the high dosage tutoring on a 3-4 times a week in small groups. What is required that research says will get students where they need to be. And so I'm glad to hear that you are really using the student body as a part of the team. There was a question.
Can I share one more thing?
Sure.
So we have a honors program at the university, and a part of the honors program, they are required to push in to the high school to commit 2 volunteer hours per week as a part of the class. And it's remarkable in the honors program, they're divided into 3 sets. They can either be teacher assistant, tutors, or mentors. And so we've got lots of support from that, where they even come back as the 2nd year honor student or 3rd year honor student to provide support. And I'll leave with this: over spring break, where like most schools preparing for statewide testing, over spring break, we had a large majority of our students in preparation for testing to give up their spring break to prepare for the MCAP, which is the state assessment for mathematics in Maryland. And after the spring break, there will be 8 weeks of after school program, and we hire Coppin State University students to provide that additional support. And we're seeing such great gains in such a short amount of time on key algebraic concepts. And so I just wanted to give you additional evidence that the theory is working, that children tend to learn through either people that like them or people that they can connect to.
I mean, again, I have so many sort of phrases that come to mind when it comes to education, particularly HBCU. It is an all hands on deck approach to education. And that's at every HBCU that I've ever affiliated with, connected to. There are folks, no matter where you go, people are, really invested in your education. And I'm glad to see that the school being on the campus really emboldens students to get involved. There was a question in the chat. I did want to sort of come to you, Dr. Scott, about students who eventually end up at Coppin State, the 36%. Is there any preferential treatment around applications to the college to transfer in, or is there any sort of scholarships that a student who attended the high school gets if they choose to enroll in Coppin State?
Yeah, so it's both and. So our students that actually attend, they would have previously applied if they were dual enrolled students. So our dual enrolled students actually have to go through the entire application process as would an entering freshman to Coppin State University. So that's a plus, that they're already a part, and they have all of the resources that any of our universities have. They have all of the access that our university students would have access to. In reference to scholarships, there's numerous. Our Coppin Academy students have access to the Presidential Scholarship and the Fannie Jackson Scholarship first. We also have a Coppin to Coppin scholarship for first-year students, but if you transition, the students are guaranteed $1,000, which supports books and supplies. And then we work closely with our admissions department to secure other additional resources that students may have. We have a summer program called SAS, and our students also have an opportunity to go to the summer program and transition, which means that they can stay on campus and they can academically transition as they decide to come to Coppin State.
That's outstanding. So many models, so many points that a lot of folks on this call are listening into, and alums are calling their presidents right now, trying to figure out what's going on. Dr. Procope, again, Howard University, right there in the heart of Washington, D.C., only a few blocks from historic U Street, right there on Florida Avenue. How has your connection and location on Howard University's campus enhanced the school's connection to local Washington, D.C., and the Shaw community in the district?
It's always so interesting because when I say to people, oh, we have a middle school, they're like, you do? And it's like one of those great kept secrets. But that's changing. We are a major part of the Ward 1 Council and go to their meetings. They are constantly supporting us in what the needs of the families in the community are. As you know, gentrification is everywhere. And it is a big thing around where Howard is located. And so it's interesting because I've had some very pointed conversations with folks about the fact that we are, the conversation was, oh, there's no, viable middle school in the area. And I said, we are a middle school on a college campus being taught by certified teachers in their content area, being supported by the professors at the university, but that's not viable. And I just let that drop. So, however, Ward 1 still has a great supportive family unit, and we're able to reach out to all the community organizations, and they are more than helpful, come in and support our students. Similar to what Dr. Scott was saying, we've got lots of supports for tutoring. We have support for our after school programs. And so that includes, we're doing things like esports and robotics, and all the people who are supporting those things are coming from the community. And just to tap into the high impact tutoring, same thing happened with us. There's an organization on campus, and it's called the Industrial Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. They reached out to us, and they provided us with over 30 tutors for mathematics who came in to support our students. They come in various times during the week, and like Dr. Scott said, the data shows the children are doing so much better. And not only that communication, so that connection with that community partner, and that's a student community partner, somebody that they're looking for who cares about whether or not they do well in mathematics and it's not their teacher. So we've also provided a lot of supports to our parents, because realizing our parents are part of the community and didn't know that, Howard provided associate degree programs, that they could get other programs within the university as well. So being able to let them know that Howard was a resource to them was something that was a benefit for us, to our families.
Well, I'll tell you, I just learned something. I didn't know Howard offered associate degree programs at all. So there you go. So outstanding. Again, what's happening on these campuses, getting college students involved in the K-12 space. I would hope that those students who are tutoring high school students would look to get into education post-graduate, whether they thought so at the time or not. But once you start working with these babies and you start seeing that light come on and you start seeing things that you impact, that's how a lot of educators, that's how a lot of us started. This is how we also build that teacher pipeline as well. It's not the sort of a way that sort of has a direct sort of feedback loop to a lot of us. But I imagine if you interview those students 4 or 5 years from now, if they get into education, that this connection that you all are providing in tutoring K-12 students will have been a spark. And that's something that I've seen historically, but also research has showed. Before we move on to the next question, I do want to show some of these results of the types of schools that folks thought that they think that they would like to open if they could. And so we got one answer. Do we have any answers there? I don't see them here. So I'll let my buddy Max figure this out. I don't see the answers here. But again, this is something that I thought parents and folks in the chat could definitely comment on. I did a similar question before, and folks really came back saying, you know, I would love to do a language immersion, art-centered boarding school. And I'm like, well, now the best way to do that is probably through a charter school. Just to be honest with you, I worked in K-12 and I was on my school board, local school board for 10 years. And the types of programs that a lot of us are thinking about are best created when you have the freedom and autonomy to do the things that you all are doing, that are not encumbered by a lot of bureaucracy of a traditional public school system. Just putting it out there. I worked in both, so I know. I do want to come to the third point in our report and sort of get your comments as well. The third way our report outlines how HBCUs can impact the future of education is by what we call strengthening ties between K-12 and higher ed, which again, you all are already outlining so beautifully, by developing unique partnerships with the school they authorize. So again, the entire concept is what would happen if we gave Coppin State, Stillman College, Howard University, not only the power to open a school on its campus, but to authorize schools throughout their state in their district. What if Coppin could be the authorizer for other charter schools throughout the state of Maryland and have the control over the application process, the type of school, the budget, the accountability, the assessments, the reauthorization of those schools? And so that power that we're talking about in the school building, what happens if that HBCU had the power throughout their district, like Washington, D.C., or Alabama, or Maryland, or other states? But what the power and the connection between all the other schools they authorize could have as a pipeline, as teacher preparation, as laboratories for learning, and the like. And so this idea of, you know, providing access to higher education campuses, which you all do, creating pipelines of new students, which clearly you all do, opportunities for dual enrollment, which I'm hearing all as well, mentorships programs between schools and you all are already covering it all, and research opportunities for faculty to go into the K-12 space that are trying to talk about student anxieties, talk about excellence, artificial intelligence, the future of education. So I want to sort of give you all opportunity to answer this question. What could an HBCU like Stillman College, and I'll start with you, Dr. Lang, what could an HBCU authorizing other charter schools throughout the state of Alabama mean for HBCU students as mentors and researchers and future educators? What would happen if Stillman could authorize schools throughout the state of Alabama?
You know, I believe that as an authorizer, as well as for the charter school sector, that charter schools are only as successful as the expectation and the governance and the authority. And I believe that as an authorizer, it lends them the opportunity of setting that bar of what is the expectation. Because just opening a charter school in itself doesn't impact education, but it has to go a little deeper of, you know, what's the expectation of that charter school? How is that charter school going to be held accountable for the performance, the results? I think from the lens of an HBCU, knowing, you know, the expectation of students not only participating in dual enrollment programs, but potentially just coming to enroll with them as students, is setting the example of, again, the expectation, the annual performance frameworks, and then creating, like, moving the red tape out of the way of being very intentional of working with charter schools, of creating those mentorship opportunities, creating those lab school partnerships, creating opportunities for current college students to be able to do clinicals and other observation work directly with those schools. As well as, I think one of the big pieces of, you know, not only, you know, preparing for, yes, those high state tests, but it's also having a greater impact on that culture, on creating that HBCU culture. Like, how do we bring it to a K-12 environment? And I think that's a key area where they can play a pivotal part in assuring that as an authorizer.
Dr. Scott, what would it look like? What impact could Coppin State have if it was a statewide authorizer in Maryland and could have control over the creation, accountability, high stakes, really high standards for students of color, all students in the state of Maryland? What could that mean?
So I'll say that in the city of Baltimore, Coppin State University is the charter operator, but the authorizer for the school is Baltimore City Public Schools. So, and I can speak to DC because I was principal and work for the charter school board. It's very different. The school is in its own LEA, standing LEA. The school partners with the standing LEA in the city. However, I do believe that if Coppin State University was the sole authorizer, standing LEA, we really could transform the entire community. And I'm thinking about, we work through such bureaucracy as student discipline, because the Baltimore City services 188 schools. And so many of its policies for students go across the board and expands an array of different schools and different climates. But when you identify a specific group of students, you're able to have specific outcomes and expectations. And so, with Dr. Jenkins, our president, as the visionary of ensuring that there is a clear pipeline, but students are able to be successful. We're clearly closing the gaps. We're working with students one-on-one. We would have the autonomy to change the teacher-student ratio. We would have the autonomy to change when students enter to learn, how they're actually serving in support of each other. I think that the success that Coppin State University is having, we would very similar, not just see glimpses of that success in the high school, but we too would mirror that same success rate, including financial impact, the number of people that are providing as funders, making sure that the curriculum aligns to the students and how the students' outcome versus just the standard curriculum across the board. So when the charter school has both authorization and charter, you have full autonomy to carry out the entire vision versus working within the vision. And so I'll just end by saying that what the cabinet is doing on the campus of Coppin State University, if that could be mirrored across multiple high schools in the state of Maryland, I think that people of color would truly see an economic impact. When I think about jobs and ensuring that people across the board have more social justice and equity, making sure that people have this inner confidence of who they can become and what their value and worth is, it would truly change the landscape of not just education, but our global society and its impact as well.
I'm glad you said that so much. I mean, I've been working particularly in the state of Maryland for a very long time, and there's always been talk about trying to find a higher education partner in the state to become an authorizer at the state level as an alternative to local authorizers, which I served as on my school board here in Prince George's County. Because of a lot of there's politics at the local level, there are a lot of things that restrict charter schools from opening in states and districts throughout the state of Maryland. I imagine it's similar to other states, but that power at the state level could be so powerful. Dr. Procope, if Howard University was its own authorizer that could also open up schools throughout the city and be the governing body to ensure that they're carrying out their mission, but also the mission of Howard University in some way, what could that mean for education in the District of Columbia?
And so, first of all, I have to say that we, as authorizers go, I think that the DC Charter School Board does an excellent job. Won't say that part. When we were putting our charter together in 2005, the input that we had came from a lot from the School of Education. So when you think about an authorizer, ensuring that schools are of high quality, have, as Dr. Scott said, have the right curriculum, as Dr. Lang said, making sure that they are accountable. Having a School of Education to provide all of those things to our application was phenomenal. So if you think about that same body that educates superintendents, that educates teachers and principals, and that's on the college campus, and it's on an HBCU campus, and they're the ones providing input as an authorizer, because what happens in any authorizing body, it's getting the people in there who actually understand education, understand what K-12 needs, what a charter school needs, and so those people are coming in and out. But on HBCU, they're there. So those professors are there. They are the people who know what's needed for K-12, because they're teaching young people to be those people in K-12 schools. So what better place to authorize charter schools than an HBCU? So to me, HBCUs have the foundation, they have the experience, and should absolutely be the people who are looking at authorizing charter schools in the country.
This is so true. I think for those of us who know a lot about our HBCU that we worked with, we attended, we read about our founders, this is the founders' wildest dream, at least in 2024. The founders of HBCUs wanted to control over the school as much as they could, period, because they knew that we were best situated to learn, train, care for, provide our students the support that they need to be successful. And we've been doing it for over 150 years or longer. But yet, in some cases, we've ceded that control, unfortunately, in a lot of ways to other people. And we're seeing the results of that, to your point, Dr. Scott. We're only able to sort of not fully actualize the vision. It's close, but there's still so much more to go. We're going to wrap up soon. But the fourth and final way, and you've alluded to this, Dr. Scott, I want to give you credit for that. The fourth way that we in the report highlights how we could reform education through HBCUs become authorizers. It was something we call creating small, strong community institutions and wealth. By understanding the potential in new charters, creating new facilities and jobs with opportunities for economic growth in communities, and incentivizing African American and alumni vendors who provide schools with products and services. And so for all of you, as we're wrapping up, you lead schools, and in your case, Dr. Lang, you will hire vendors in food services, cleaning, landscaping, supplies, ed technology, you name it. What's the difference between becoming a vendor with a charter network and with the traditional school district? For those of you who know both, how much simpler could it be? Will it be to be able to have more decisions over procurement and how schools funds are allocated because you're a charter versus being a traditional school? So anyone can answer that question.
I think for us, especially as we're kind of going through those processes now, while we still follow the same RFP process that's set out by our district, I think we've taken a very intentional approach to making that process very streamlined and more accessible and efficient for our community businesses. And we also have added like another layer to ensure that small businesses within our community, that they understand the RFP process. And so we've lent ourselves to be there to help them navigate through the process, to answer their questions one-on-one that they may not have posed in a larger forum when it's been published. And then also making sure that we're providing more avenues where the RFP is getting in front of smaller businesses. But I think the biggest thing that we have seen is just adding that extra layer to provide the support and the education and the training around to ensure that those businesses are able to come to the table and complete the proposal.
Dr. Scott, Dr. Procope, Talk more about how having a charter school could allow charter school leaders to have more control over how funds are spent.
Yeah, I'll just say that so much of it has to do with who the operator is. So, because at Coppin State, we are a state agency, so we have to follow all of Maryland state policy and governance. One of the things that Maryland does offer is that 25% of all RFPs have to be 25% of all RFPs have to go to minority businesses. So that's an opportunity to increase minority businesses providing support for us. But currently, Coppin State, there's not a plethora where we can open up to minority businesses to provide supports on a large scale for impacting the high school. We don't offer because, again, we follow state policy and processes. I'll say, though, that when you're going back to the authorization question, right? When you're an authorizer, you have so much more autonomy to do whatever you want, which would include ensuring that, the vendors that you bring in, they also contribute to the community. So at one point, I was a part of DC authorization. I was principal of CDC, the first boarding school in the country. And we utilized a lot of minority businesses, but the businesses also had to give back, which was a huge win-win for the organization. And that give back could be providing waters, or we just had the solar eclipse in 2017. I was principal. We had a vendor provide glasses for the organization. So whatever that give back meant, it was a soft ask to ensure that as we are extending this olive branch as a minority business, we also invite you to become a partner within the organization. And don't get me wrong, not everybody took us up on the offer, but a large majority did, where it impacted the organization at a broader scope.
Dr. Proco?
And one of the things, Dr. Lang said something very key, and that's making our community aware of the RFP process. We're a public school, and we have to follow the tenets of our of the city. But what happens is a lot of small businesses don't understand what the process is, and so when we put out RFPs for a vendor, they don't even know how to get that part. So what we do is have some education around that. And it's interesting because we've actually put it out to our parent community, because you'd be surprised how many of our parents have businesses of their own and never thought about, an opportunity like, oh, let me respond to an RFP to increase my revenue. So making sure that we're helping our community understand what that process is and how they can apply, so that they can take advantage of some of the opportunities to be a vendor for our charter schools. And so that's something that we've been concentrating on.
No, thank you all so much. We mentioned in the report this idea of the Julius Rosenwald schools, which were schools that many of which connected to Tuskegee University as well. My great grandparents were Rosenwald School co-founders, and my great uncle started a bus company because he purchased a bus, had his sons drive the bus. Back then, if you had a farm license, you could drive a school bus too. And was able to create wealth in a community where even to this day, there's no traffic light in Bracey, Virginia. But there was a bus company that was created from that school. My great aunt, Lorraine Valentine, was providing school lunches, eventually opened up a restaurant. And so there's opportunities for economic development because these schools are created and because you have an authorizer that shares that vision. We're going to wrap up, but before we do, I definitely want to highlight some of the schools that people mentioned in the chat that they think that'd be really, really cool. One was a sports school with a focus on sports skills, but other sports-related majors. I imagine sports management, sports entrepreneurship, around branding, a school that really teaches young men and young women how to get involved into athletics and marketing. Someone also said a nature-based, travel-based school where students spend most of their academic day outside and traveling the world. Outstanding. Someone mentioned a career-connected learning model with a single-gender charter school to increase presence in careers and their underrepresentation. Someone else said, I dream about opening a school for urban high school students who want to be educators. I believe the school would need to partner with students as decision makers. All amazing things. And so the four of us are saying do it. Like, do it. Our students need it. Our babies need it. Dr. Lang, seeing you here opening your school, that's where it starts, right? It starts from an idea, and then it starts from getting your people together and your friends together, and then one day students are actually learning and getting college degrees and tutoring. And so again, I want to thank you all. This panel actually, I had high expectations for it, but y'all just kicked the door down and threw it out the window, and this is what we have. This is going to be shared and talked about for a very long time. For those that are interested, particularly in the higher education space, whether it be at an HBCU or you're someone who's an administrator of an HBCU, School of Education Dean, please reach out to us to discuss how you can talk about bringing this idea of HBCUs as charter authorizers to the fore. If you're a state legislator in your state and you want to talk about how to write a bill that can give the HBCU in your state the power to become an authorizer, please connect with me more directly. I'm looking forward to these leaders doing amazing things and highlighting and showcasing their amazing things happening in Stillman, in Baltimore, in Washington, D.C. for Black educators, educating predominantly Black students. Thank you all so much. Have a great day and look forward to talking to you all again.